Bachelorette, Monday on ABC.
We now know tonight what caused the global technology outage impacting major services. Cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike says a faulty software update caused technological havoc, grounding flights, disrupting hospitals and government offices. It also affected Microsoft Windows users, which is the world's most popular operating system. And as organizations scrambled to solve the issue, we wanted to find out how it even happened in the first place. Dayton 24/7 Now's Lydia Bice took our questions to a local cybersecurity expert.
Obviously, today's outage impacted not just the entire United States, but organizations around the world. So I spoke with a local cybersecurity expert on how this even happened in the first place. So what we now know is this all started with CrowdStrike, which is a US-based cybersecurity company. Now, CrowdStrike was pushing out a new update when a bad file was discovered. This bad file is what ended up causing these crashes across the globe, impacting a number of institutions from airlines to banks to hospitals.
So what this tells us, one, is how many companies are using CrowdStrike, and two, how many companies are concerned about cybersecurity and malware on their systems.
Now, I asked Neely what happens next for CrowdStrike. He says he thinks this might make organizations look into other cybersecurity companies that they could partner with, but he also said that CrowdStrike got to work on these issues immediately and are known for being a leader in this field. Back to you.
A live look right now at the FlightAware flight tracker, where you can actually see there were more than 43,000 delays and nearly 5,000 cancellations because of that tech outage earlier today. Everything at the Dayton International Airport tonight is back to normal, but the FAA says multiple airlines such as Delta, United, and American all had to ground flights over the communication issue. While there's not issues tonight at Dayton International, travelers in larger cities like Atlanta are still feeling those effects. And gas stations across the nation were impacted as well. Many gas stations like this Speedway on Miamisburg-Springboro Road in Miami Township shut down their pumps and even the convenience store. This led to some overcrowding at gas stations that were still able to be open. And even here locally, a few public health departments were also affected. Eli Brigette spoke to representatives from those organizations and even other public services in the area to see how they dealt with the outage.
Well, some of these agencies were able to reset their operations shortly after the outage took place, but there are many others that still have no timeline for when this problem will go back to normal, leaving many citizens to look for alternative ways to do things like paying taxes and attaining health benefits.
So the outage that we woke up to this morning, it is an international, it's a global technology outage, which is affecting financial services worldwide.
Due to the current global IT outage, the Montgomery County Treasurer's Office encouraged people to use online e-checks to pay their property taxes. For public health organizations like Greene County, some of their nutritional benefits programs were interrupted by the outage. However, after several hours of being in the dark, they managed to bring their servers back online, and they plan to proceed with normal operations. Many of the agencies that I talked to will be closed over the weekend. They'll be back on Monday, and they are hoping during that time this problem will be resolved. Back to you.
A new warning tonight from tech administrators. Cyber criminals are now taking advantage of the CrowdStrike outage. The founder of the Internet Storm Center says there's been a spike in phishing emails claiming to come from, quote, CrowdStrike support or CrowdStrike security. Attackers are using media attention about the outage to lure victims, the company says, to avoid those emails. And of course, we first brought you this as breaking news this morning as soon as it happened, and you can get those alerts sent right to the palm of your hand. Download the Dayton 24/7 Now app. It's easy to do. Take out your phone, scan that QR code you see there on your screen. That'll take you to the App Store where you can download it for free. One person is dead tonight following what deputies are now calling a domestic dispute. It happened just before noon on Dayton Lebanon Pike. They say that a 28-year-old man was shot and killed. The 27-year-old woman involved in that dispute is cooperating. Now, there were two other people in the house at the time. The relationships between the four is unknown tonight. The shooting, though, is under investigation. And we have new information tonight following a story we brought you as breaking news. We now know a 20-year-old man was shot multiple times and is now in stable condition. We also learned two other men, 18 years old and 25 years old, were found dead inside a vehicle that crashed. Two people were arrested. However, They are not those charges are not related to the actual shootings or deaths. Now, the Dayton Police Department's homicide unit is actively investigating, and if you have any information, you're asked to call detectives or Miami Valley Crime Stoppers. That number is on your bottom of your screen. A beautiful live look tonight over the Miami Valley from our Eco Plumber Skycam. Natalie, I am just hoping the weekend is like this.
It's going to be another great one. Little warmer than we have been, but still nice. Low humidity expected in the forecast still for right now, though, in the 60s. So we're back into the upper 60s in Dayton. Same thing with Troy. 70 in Sydney. Cool spots, Wapakoneta, Greenville, Urbana in the lower 60s. Those places haven't seen much in the way of cloud cover. We actually saw some clouds build in from a system to our south, keeping temperatures up a little bit this evening. 4 degrees warmer compared to this time yesterday in Dayton, a degree warmer in Springfield, and not quite as cool overnight. We'll drop into the upper 50s, which is still cooler than our average for this time of the year, but nice, pleasant evening, light northerly breeze. Couldn't rule out maybe some patchy fog in some spots, but overall, another nice night around the corner. Coming up, I'll have a look at the weekend forecast and what we're expecting for next week, too.
Dayton Public Schools wrapped up its summer program, Freedom Schools, this past week, and the final showcase and performance was last night. However, at this very same time, just 4 miles away, a polar opposite gathering was taking place as people stood on the lawn of Thurgood Marshall High School watching police investigate a shooting. Jenna Lee Bork is now live with us in studio. Now, Jenna Lee, you were actually at both of these events. Can you describe what it was like to experience that?
It's really hard to describe it, but the best way I can describe it is it's heartbreaking, and it's really just like a shock to your system. The finale of the Freedom Schools program was positive and high energy, and to have to go to a scene where 2 men died and another was injured was difficult, to say the least. With all of the recent violence, I even asked a couple of parents at the finale event if this program made them feel like their kids were safer this summer.
I do feel that my daughter was extremely safe here. I think every child or, even teenager should be exposed to this type of unity.
For 6 weeks this summer, elementary school and middle school students got to experience a free, fun learning and social program 5 days a week. Dormitria Thompson, the executive director of Freedom Schools, says it's a movement more than a program. It's a positive way to keep kids busy during the summer, which has been especially important this year with the amount of gun violence the city has seen.
We are able to provide a safe space to safely be, to safely learn, to safely explore.
From 8 to 3, Monday through Friday, the scholars, as the participants are called, are busy. Each day starts with a focus on reading.
We know that if scholars are not engaged in something educational that ties into literacy or even math in the summertime, it's something called the summer slide.
Scholars can choose their own afternoon activities. Some options are gardening, martial arts, dance, and sports fitness. Thompson saying the physical activities are as important as the educational ones.
And sometimes some of these scholars, they don't go outside. Some of this because of safety or whatever, and so just getting them up and moving.
Weekly field trips are also part of the schedule. High school and college students are given the opportunity throughout to intern, teach, and mentor. One mother says it's the first year her 8-year-old participated and her teenager interned, saying it's been great for both.
My 8-year-old absolutely adores the program. As far as my teenager, this has just shown her a lot of responsibility, and it's just brought her out of her space.
Tanya Gantz's son has attended Freedom Schools for 7 years, starting after his father died. She describes how much he's grown.
When he first started, he would cry pretty much every day. He wasn't comfortable at all, and then throughout the year, his first year in, he started becoming the leader that he's turned into today.
Freedom Schools does an after-school program for Fairview Elementary and E.J. Brown Middle School called Scholars of Hope, which is a 3-hour program all school year. For more information, you can go to our website to see our web story at Dayton247now.com. Back to you.
The former president wrapping up the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee last night, where the Trump fans' ticket is now headed next.
Plus, I'm tracking that nice weather through the weekend, but I'll let you know how much longer it will last. That's coming up. Here's a live look from our Eco Plumber Skycam. You're watching Dayton 24/7 now.
Here's what I know. promise bonus cash at Jeff Schmidt Cadillac in Beaver Creek.
Senator Sherrod Brown is now calling on President Biden to end his re-election campaign. He's now the fourth Senate Democrat to tell Biden to drop out of the race. Brown made this post here behind me on X saying in part, quote, "I agree with the many Ohioans who have reached out to me. At this critical time, our full attention must return to these important issues. I think the president should end his campaign." Biden's campaign has maintained that the president will not step aside. In fact, President Biden plans to return to the campaign trail next week. Right now, he is self-isolating from COVID in Delaware. The president is resisting calls from a list of Democratic leaders to drop out of the 2024 race. Biden is calling for unity as the best way to defeat former President Donald Trump come November. Meanwhile, Democratic National Committee Chair James Harris says President Biden will be renominated. He made this announcement at the beginning of today's Rules meeting. Now, the DNC is discussing a virtual nomination process to begin in early August.
We will execute the most successful convention in our party's lifetime. Thanks to every single one of you, we will renominate President Biden and Vice President Harris and defeat Donald Trump and J.D. Vance.
Critics are accusing the party of using the virtual process to speed Biden's nomination through after last month's debate and growing calls for him to step aside. Leaders initially decided on that virtual vote to meet a deadline posed by an Ohio law, which lawmakers have since postponed. And today, Governor Mike DeWine appealed the denial for a presidential disaster declaration for storm damage in early April. Governor DeWine made the request back in June, citing $33.8 million in damages in 8 eastern counties. And through FEMA, President Biden denied the request less than 3 weeks later. Now, if granted, the declaration would provide grants to help infrastructure repairs and the designation of a hazard mitigation program statewide. The Republican National Convention is all wrapped up in Milwaukee tonight. Former President Donald Trump closed out the week last night with a highly anticipated speech after he survived an assassination attempt over the weekend. In last night's speech, he showcased a calmer version of himself while also appearing like the normal firebranding Trump.
I'm not supposed to be here tonight. Not supposed to be here. The greatest invasion in history is taking place right here in our country. They're coming from mental institutions and insane asylums.
Now, Trump and Vance plan to hit the campaign trail, running with their first rally up tomorrow up in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Then after that, Senator J.D. Vance will be returning to his hometown for the first time since becoming the vice presidential nominee. Vance will deliver remarks at a rally at Middletown High School on Monday. He's slated to start speaking at 1:30 in the afternoon. Doors open Monday morning at 10:30. Of course, we will have a crew out there.
Well, great evening across the Miami Valley. Beautiful sunset and also beautiful moonrise. Wanted to show this video right here. You can see the almost full moon rising. It will be the full buck moon on the 21st, but notice as it makes its way through those high clouds, it kind of dims and brightens up just a bit, almost changes colors at one point. So just a really cool sight to see this evening as that moon was rising through the clouds, but it was a great one out there, and it's going to continue to be pretty nice thanks to high pressure. Notice those clouds to our southeast. That is due to a system just south of our region. Stalled boundary bringing showers through parts of the south. Now, we're going to stay rain-free through the weekend. Couple clouds around, but overall looking good. We'll warm up into the upper 60s by 8 a.m., but I think we'll see some 50s again. Lower 80s by the afternoon. Sunday, a little bit more cloud cover and getting up into the mid-80s. And then notice by Monday, we're tracking showers, even a few thunderstorms with an unsettled weather pattern by next week.
Several weeks have now passed since Ohio first approved provisional recreational dispensary licenses. Christian Hauser set out to find out why there's still no place to buy recreational marijuana in Ohio.
The state started accepting applications for recreational marijuana sales June 7th. So far, it's received 230 applications for dual-use sales. That means that a medical dispensary would also sell recreationally. It's also received another 190 new dispensary license applications. So far, 216 businesses have qualified for a provisional license. Here's the big news, though, and why we should expect the first recreational sales within a few weeks. 10 facilities have been issued certificate of operation. That includes 4 cultivators. They're the folks who grow the marijuana, and 6 processors. They're the ones who create the marijuana products. Think gummies, that sort of stuff. The state is focusing on the cultivators and processors first to make sure that there's an adequate supply once the dispensaries start opening. So now those facilities can start growing and producing recreational products. But dispensaries cannot sell any marijuana that's not been licensed in Ohio. Story Cannabis CEO Jason Vedati says he's excited to hear the state has issued the first operation certificates.
We originally probably had a more pessimistic view when the law passed, just because there was a lot of uncertainty in the legislature. It seemed like there was more opposition than inevitably ended up like being part of the process. I think it went pretty smooth.
The state must inspect each dispensary before it's granted that full license. They must prove that they can separate the sales of recreational and medical marijuana and meet a few other conditions. The state is handling everything on a first-come, first-served basis. Vedati says Ohioans should be happy with how quickly the program's rolling out. He points to Massachusetts, which legalized recreational pot in 2016.
5 years later, there were people that were still waiting, because it wasn't like everybody turned on at once. They were like went through a process. 5 years later, some people were still not selling rec.
In Cincinnati, I'm Christian Hauser.
A live look now from our Eco Plumber Sky Cam. Let's send it out to Chief Meteorologist Natalie Walters.
Well, nice one out there across the Miami Valley and for this evening on our Watson's Weather patio. Always like it when it's almost room temperature out here. It feels great, low humidity, just nice weather, but it does get warm, a little warmer this weekend, low to mid 80s. So we will start to see those temperatures climb a bit. In fact, staying in the mid 80s on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we got rain and a few thunderstorms in the forecast that will keep temperatures down just a little bit, but overall, next several days looking pretty good across the area with that low humidity, but we do start to see humidity and those rain chances return. So I'll take a look at that 7-day coming up here in just a bit.
Kids will be heading back to school before we know it, and how you can help make sure they have the supplies they need to be successful. You're watching Dayton 24/7 now.
Take Dayton.
Accident lawyers at Elk and Elk. Call 1-800-ELK-OHIO.
Kids of all ages need the right tools to make the most of their education. Dayton 24/7 Now is partnering with Cranston Classrooms all next week to provide school supplies for local students as they head back to class. Today, Raising Cane stopped by our studio to help stuff the bus. They dropped off a bunch of folders, pencils, and other goodies. And you can help us stuff the bus too. We have it parked outside our studio, ready for your donations. You can stop by beginning Monday to help supply kids here in the Miami Valley as they head back to school. Well, it has been nearly 23 years since a bride-to-be vanished just 3 weeks before her wedding day. Now, more than 2 decades later, we're investigating what happened to 28-year-old Nikki McCown. She was last seen at a laundromat in Richmond, Indiana on July 22nd, 2001. 5 months later, Nikki's car was found at an apartment complex here in Dayton. But to date, Nikki has never been found, and while police had 3 viable suspects, they still don't know what happened to her. Our podcast team spent a year going over documents, evidence, interviewing detectives, and those closest to Nikki. One of those people was Nikki's daughter, Peyton, who was just 9 when her mother vanished. Peyton is now an adult in her 30s with a daughter of her own.
Nicolette was just something that my aunt called my mom, and I just knew that that was something that I would eventually like to tribute to my mother. And from what I hear, Nicolette is similar to my mom in her spunkiness and things like that as a child. So it's good to know that the name holds weight.
The season trailer for Missing Nikki McCown is out now. The first 2 episodes of the podcast will be dropped on Monday, July 22nd. That's coming up this Monday. Just scan the QR code on your screen to download or search Missing Nikki McCown in Apple, Spotify, or